I'm so happy that words like trauma-informed and neuro anything are starting to be in lingo, but it also just adds all of these words that start to either mean a lot of things or nothing, and they're just kind of vague words. The thing to me that brought it home, and I'm hoping you can, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to describe these things, but I remember in one of the speeches you were giving, you were talking about like the 4 or 5 things that the brain needs. It needs to be connected, it needs to be, and like I started to understand what's different or unique or distinctive about this model in some of the simple ways it describes human experience so that others can understand it too. Do you know what I'm talking about, those 4 or 5 things? I wonder if you could.
And I think what you're referencing is one of our major paradigms, and that's called the 4 Elements of Flourishing. And where that came from is that when we started to look at resilience, and resilience, there's so many definitions of resilience, but when we look at it, it's the ability to take a skill or a set of skills, applying them across a variety of environments successfully. And when you're able to do that, then we say you have become resilient. And when I started to look along with others about what are the key ingredients across multiple disciplines, so whether you're in social work or in education, psychology, psychiatry, anthropology even, what did the literature say about resilient people from those disciplines? And we started to realize there were very clear commonalities in these outcomes. Now, they might have had a different word, but what we decided to do is we chose words that we felt like represented all of those disciplines and made the connection that they were really meaning to connect. So, for example, the first thing that we start with in the training in the 4 Elements of Flourishing is the topic of safety. And safety is such an absolutely critical thing because there's such a biological connection to feeling safe, feeling unsafe. And we concentrate on this idea of perceived safety based on your own experiences. And we know your experiences shape who you become. So if you've had good experiences, bad experiences, any and all of those shape who you are and how you perceive the world. So unfortunately, there are some people who've had some really unfortunate situations happen to them, some stressful, even traumatic events that have colored their lives. So sometimes very simple things like being touched on the shoulder or hearing a sound can cause an overreaction. But these overreactions are based on real reactions that might have necessitated them making safety moves in order to keep themselves safe in the past. So it might seem like an overreaction to us, but it was actually a survival strength for them at some point. So these start to craft, and it's important for people to understand that safety, if our brains are experiencing or perceiving that there is a lack of safety, then it will actually put us into a survival mode where our survival systems are going to react to the world around us, which is not exactly what we want happening under most cases. Like if you touch fire, you want to touch that fire and move your hands away as soon as possible. But you don't want to put your hand in the fire. So your survival system is strong that way. You pull your hand back in order to prevent any future damage.
Is it automatic? Like
it is automatic. It's something that we even feel like has probably been passed down by our ancestors. Things that fire's been around a long time. We probably touched it a lot, and we've learned it's hot. Remove it. But the thing is that if we were to say that we were going to trust that action to the logical systems in the brain, the logical systems may allow too much time for us to think, and then we end up burning ourselves. So we hold our hand in that fire. So there are times when the brain and the body need to react to the environment for safety. But in most occasions, we want the logical systems in the brain to be the systems that are taking over because logical systems have options. And it allows us to do that. And we call these the responses that occur from the logical systems in that moment. So safety becomes our primary thing to look at. And then that was permeating through all the literature. That some form of safety was one of the resilient outcomes. The second thing that we saw that was quite consistent across the literature was a feeling of significance. And you take a look at the synonyms associated with significance, feeling valued, feeling important, feeling worthwhile. When people don't feel they have value to add to the people or the environment around us, they will really suffer and they can be in quite a bit of pain. And in fact, from some of our early research that we've got going on right now, we're finding out that people in the mental health field tend to leave this field when they don't feel that they are significant. and that they have anything valuable to offer. And a lot of times they don't feel like they have something valuable to offer because they're spinning their wheels. And we hope that by giving them more information, they're going to feel more empowered, be able to take some more appropriate clinical risks and start feeling valued again.
And I might be jumping around a little bit, but I think the part of what we talked about today is the 4 elements of flourishing. And you said nothing comes from nothing. And I think the other thing is every behavior has a story, right? We talked a lot about that in the training. And earlier you'd mentioned that sometimes a reaction may seem like an overreaction. Well, when we can understand the sense of safety and the sense of significance, I think those stories start to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important part of those 4 elements of flourishing.
I want to get back to the 4 elements of flourishing, but I also, we're talking about these trainings we're doing at Family and Children's. I know we're bringing you in, and I know you're coming every quarter, and good stuff is happening, but what are we doing right now for our system with Dr. Baker?
So today, or last 2 days, we've had the pleasure of having Dr. Baker back for this is the 3rd time now, and we've trained just a little over 200 of our staff in this PersonBrain model. And our plan so far this year, and I've really got some ambitious goals with this one, is to make sure we train close to about 1,000 staff this year in this PersonBrain model. And that's not just a specific population, that's all staff. So
right, that's operations too, not just the clinicians, right?
Everybody. I mean, I knew this from the get-go, but even being in the trainings today and reading The Hopeful Brain, this is something that everybody working in mental health could benefit from, whether you're in administration or in HR or in IT. Like there's meaningful bits of this that are beautiful takeaways just for everyday work and especially for working in this field.
And it gives us shared language.
Yes.
I feel like you talk about significance. It's not just frontline staff. It's if you are an accountant or keeping facilities open, it's important to feel connected to everything we're doing, and there's a reason we're doing everything we do. And I feel like that's one of the things that this model encapsulates so well, is all those things that if we have that shared language and shared understanding, we're going to be better in interacting with each other. What are your thoughts, though? Because you started bringing this to organizations before ours. How does it benefit a system when PersonBrain comes in, becomes this common language and this model that we're all endorsing? What have you seen the impact be for systems and the communities and so on as a result of that?
So the first thing that I hear from organizations that have gone through the training, and by the way, when you're looking at the volume that you guys are talking about training, this will result in you becoming a PersonBrain certified organization. And I think that what happens when you become that level of you receive that level of training is that you would start expecting that common language starts to shape the culture in a way that is strength-based and it's positive in nature, but it's also taking into account the individual experience of everyone, and that's every employee that you're working with. So if we even now go back to the 4 elements of flourishing, tying that into the 3rd element, which is about respect.
What were the first 2 again? Because we talked about other stuff.
Yeah, so the first one we talked about was safety. The second one was significance. And then 3rd, this is a great segue right now, this takes us into respect. And respect is something that's extremely important to understand because respect is 100% tied to a person's cultural experience. And we're not talking necessarily race or religion or ethnic background. We could talk about anybody. Each one of us at this table has a different cultural experience. We've been raised, maybe have some similar foods, some similar language, but we have different cultural experiences, and we need to be able to be understood based on those cultural experiences. And I define culture, by the way, as any sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch that has been important to you in your past that you want to continue in the present and in the future. And those things become extremely important. Now, when people feel disrespected, there's an interesting correlation in the research as disrespect actually serves as a red flag to safety, to being unsafe. Because if you can disrespect me, the brain starts worrying about, well, what else could you do to me potentially? If you could speak to me this way and know that it makes me uncomfortable, then what else could you potentially do? And so I think one of the organizational benefits is really helping to create safe environments. And we're not talking about like physical safety, necessarily, but emotionally safe, organizationally safe, approachably safe. And I think I like that word sometimes better than safety when you're talking about organizations. It's approachability. I can come to you and say, hey, I've messed up. and I'm not exactly sure what to do, rather than sitting in the background and letting something snowball. We really want people to feel really comfortable so that that sense of safety, that sense of value, that people know that what they do is contributing positively to this environment, and that we have ways of recognizing that. And so then finally, the fourth one, after we've had safe, significant, respect, it's this focus on relatedness. We know that from the moment that we are born, we are designed to connect with other people. We'll reach our hands out and hope that people will grab, and we can grab onto them and squeeze their fingers. We want to see that finger being squeezed, when little babies. But even babies have things by looking at us and holding their big eyes open that we are drawn to then protect them. They're emitting hormones, and they're causing rises in a reward and a bonding hormone known as oxytocin. And from the first breath of life to the last breath of life, we will be making connections with people because that is natural. It explains something how important it is that we are connected well. Inside of our brains, we have locations where, if you are hungry, you are going to go looking for food. It's just going to drive, you're going to be naturally driven to do that. If you're thirsty, you're going to go look for something to drink. But here's something what people don't always realize is that in this same section is that when you need attention, you're going to go looking for people. Mm-hmm. And it's that primitive. Mm-hmm. And we need to know about that because so many times we hear that children or adolescents or adults have attention-seeking behavior. And we take that as being an intentionally negative thing. They're just attention-seeking. Well, my statement that I would say is, well, then we need to figure out what it is they need us to attend to more. Most of these individuals that are attention-seeking are trying to tell us that they're thirsty and they're hungry for more of us. And that's hard for some people because in some of the locations where I work, there might be staff that are 2 to 1, or a foster child that's got, they're the only foster child in the house. And the foster parents will say, how much more attention can I provide them? And part of the neurotransactional approach is to say, all right, look, I could see you're physically present for these people. But here's the question, what's the quality of that attention? And what does it look like? And have you examined that?
You hear all the time when you talk about parents and families and households, and the couple words that always come up are, how are the children nurtured in the household? Yeah. And I think this directly ties back to parents may be present physically, but they may not be engaged, right? And then I think that's when we start talking about those attention-seeking, or I prefer the connection-seeking, right? Because that's really what it is. It's just trying to find that deeper connection. Right. And it's, absolutely. I don't know where I was going with that one, but that's definitely kind of what.
Well, we know that when that doesn't happen, whether it's connection or attachment, whatever it is, if we don't provide these very needy individuals with the attention that they need, they will go find other forms of attention. Mm-hmm. And we, in our field, call that the artificial attachment. And in those cases, that's when you make people more vulnerable to gangs, to hanging out with inappropriate risk takers, and opens up the possibility of substance and addiction issues that can come through. And it really it leaves people vulnerable. So not intervening and fulfilling that need at an early stage, it's really risky and it's quite dangerous.